Hey, the Dogs are headed to the SEC Championship, second straight time as we go to Atlanta and Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Georgia and LSU on Saturday. So we're going to talk a little football here with two guys who know what they're talking about, Eric Zier and DJ Shockley. And guys, let's talk defense first. Georgia's defense has been outstanding. Maybe the best defense in the country. I mean, they don't give up any points, 11 a game before last week's game against Georgia Tech, and they got 14, and the last 7 were cheap, but they still count. But how has Georgia done it defensively this year, and what do you see for this defense going into the championship game against LSU?
It's pretty amazing, I think, with what this defense has done after losing so many guys to the NFL draft last year. For this team to come out, we knew there was a lot of talent. But we also knew there was a tremendous amount of experience. And I think what's amazing to me is how they've adapted from game to game based on what opposing offenses, how they want to attack. We've come out, we've been vanilla for a lot of the season when we need to ratchet up pressure. This defense communicates well enough and they're smart enough to go out and give multiple looks. I think as we move into this game against LSU that has got a dynamic quarterback, that they're obviously playing at a very high level, that we're going to have to get more multiple than we have seen throughout much of the year. But it's been an amazing run. If you go back 2 years, what this defense has done has really been remarkable. This year's defense, they have tremendous speed, tremendous athleticism, and they haven't hit their peak yet. They're still growing and can still get better.
And I think the good thing about it is this defense has been able to change the stripes of who you are. You talked about just being able to be multiple, and whatever the game calls for, this defense can go do it. And I think we've seen times where we had 4 or 5 sacks in a game, you're not able to get sacks, and then there's times where you got tons of pressure on the quarterback. Here's a quarterback coming here who can run. He's leading his team in rushing. He's got over 700 yards rushing. But I think the thing that bodes well for us is over the past few games, we've been able to get to the quarterback. We saw, you played Georgia Tech. You got to him towards the end of the ball game, got some sacks, made them, turn the ball over. This is an LSU team that's been sacked 40 times. 40 times. That's last in the league. So that tells you there's room for this defense to be able to get home. But I think Kirby and his staff, Coach Schumann, Muschamp, they've done a good job of rotating guys in and out. We've played a lot of guys this season, so we've been very multiple in that facet. And I think these guys won't be enamored with playing in this building because we've been there before. Played there in the first game of the year. A lot of these guys will be used to the surroundings, but you're playing a team that's really dependent on their quarterback. So we're able to get to him and cause trouble like we've done throughout the entire year. I think we'll be just fine.
The glamorous numbers in defense are always sacks and TFLs, and we saw a lot against Georgia Tech last week, 4 sacks and 11 tackles for loss. And Shock, you mentioned the numbers that LSU has allowed, even though they have an extremely mobile quarterback. What do you guys think has been the difference over Georgia's evolution in being able to get those plays, make those plays, because they weren't really there at the beginning of the season? Defense was still good, but those numbers weren't being piled up like they are here in the back end of the season.
Yeah, I think it's just a maturation process from that front end and the back end all gelling together. And that's a big part of it is, I think earlier, like Z mentioned, we were very vanilla because we were still kind of young on the back end. We had a lot of guys who were still trying to find their way. So we had to, kind of be vanilla, play in some simple coverages, and then allow the front end to get home. Now you're seeing multiple stuff happen up front. You're seeing guys step into those roles of coaches. They say they can trust you a little bit more now, and we can call some of those exotic blitzes. We can get after guys a little bit more and feel comfortable on the back end. I mean, think back earlier to, when we played Tennessee. A lot of teams play a lot of vanilla coverage. They playing way off. We played man coverage. We came after them with 4 or 5 sometimes, add some linebackers. So having the ability to be able to change up who you are at times to give that quarterback a different look, I think is crucial.
I think a lot of it, too, is who we're playing as well. You look early in the season when we weren't getting a lot of sacks, we had a ton of pressures through the year. But when you go up against a Bo Nix, who's one of the most mobile quarterbacks, and Spencer Rattler, who was on retreat, if you remember in that game. He was on retreat the entire game. Listen, we're going to go in and play a quarterback this week that can hurt you with his legs. He's a good thrower of the football as well, but he may not be a guy that we end up getting on his back a lot. But what you feel very comfortable about is this team can get in your face, make you change your eye level off of looking down the field to that pass rush, and it takes you out of the rhythm of playing the game. So we may not come into this game against LSU because of who we're playing at quarterback and the mobility that he has and the talent that he has, because that's very similar to what we saw early in the year. It may be a game similar to that, similar to South Carolina, or similar to what we saw against Oregon, where we're in the backfield quite a bit, being disruptive, maybe not getting the quarterback on his back. When it's all said and done, you really don't care if you're getting 3 and outs and you're getting your offense back on the field.
And we got a dude in the middle that can push the middle at number 88, who
it's pretty good.
Makes a lot of people.
Last I checked,
makes a lot of people nervous. So he keeps playing the way he is. It's going to get a lot of pressure on Daniels.
Georgia's defense could get the job done in the SEC championship game against LSU. We'll see you on Saturday. Offensively, guys, we've seen Georgia be strong in just about every game. I mean, eventually, even if Georgia gets off to a sluggish start, that offense is going to move at some point in the game in 400 yards plus, normal conditions. What has made Georgia's offense so special this year?
I think the matchup problems that we present, our personnel, we've got the best tight end room in the country, maybe that I've ever seen on a college football team. So I think it starts there, but then all of a sudden you add to that the playmakers that we have out at receiver. And Ladd McConkey, after going through a bit of a rough patch in the middle part of this season, he's gotten back up to playing at a very high level. You've got Kenny McIntosh that can hurt you out of the backfield. Against Georgia Tech, catches a wheel out of the backfield, almost takes it to the house. When you've got those kind of matchup problems where you can move personnel around and really dictate the kind of coverages that you want to get, and you know what? If you don't see the personnel changes that come in with that, we've got the physicality to run it down your throat. The playmakers that we have at those positions that allow us to create matchup problems for defenses, I don't care who you are, it is hard to go match up with us. This isn't just like an offense that has got a good scheme. We've got a good scheme on top of great personnel in some key positions that people don't see all the time, and it is very difficult to guard against.
Isaiah, I think you mentioned some stuff that's so important with what we have on the outside and our skill position, how well they're playing. But then also you talk about being able to run the football. I think physically we are one of those teams that can really just roll grade you when we need to. We've seen tons of games this year where we had to close out a ball game with our offensive line. Against Georgia Tech, I heard Kirby at halftime tell the offensive line to stand up and say, we're putting this game on your shoulders. And that's the kind of accountability he puts on his team, on the offense, on the offensive line more than anything, because he knows in this league, the SEC, if you don't dominate the line of scrimmage, you don't control the line of scrimmage, you're going to win a lot of ball games. And Georgia has seemed to have done that at the end of most ball games. And I give Todd Monken a lot of credit. I think he has to be one of the top OCs in the country. And you talk about so many weapons we have. He's the guy that's pulling those strings, getting those guys in those positions. He's the guy that's, getting the matchups you like on the outside to create it for those guys to win. You talk about the wheel route he threw out the backfield. I mean, he got McIntosh on an end or a linebacker, I think it was, and that's unbelievable to find those matchups in the game, and he does it week in and week out. So you got to give Monken a lot of credit for drawing up some amazing stuff, and then the guys on the field for executing.
Well, I tell you, he does. You talk about Monken too. Just one other point to that, because I think you're spot on. He gets guys involved in the game early, and he's purposeful about that, so they get into the rhythm of the game. When you've got that many weapons, it is a hard thing to do. When you've got one or two receivers out there, it's hard to get those guys the football, and then they come back to the huddle and they're yelling at you, shot, get me the ball, get me the ball. Monken designs this thing so well that he gets his playmakers touches early in the football game, gets them into the rhythm of the game, figures out what we're going to go do to attack as we move throughout the game. He's done a great job. It helps when you've got the kind of pieces he has to go diagram plays around and scheme around. But that whole package together has been a fun thing to watch.
And guys, we've seen this offense be versatile enough and skilled enough to transition to whatever the game calls for. Conditions, I mean, we've seen rainy conditions, we've seen frigid conditions, and Georgia will just kind of kill the game and win it with a running attack. We can't put the ball in the air, so we're just going to grind it out, and we're going to beat you that way.
I think it's similar to what we talked about with the defense, being able to change the stripes. This offense can do the exact same thing. If you need to go, let's run the football 30, 40 times, we've seen this year, they can go do that. If we need to go and make some plays on the outside, they can do that. And I think it's all about the ability for us to be able to play in those different spots and play in so many different games where you've had to do that. There's been games where you had to run the football. There's been games where, the run game just not clicking early and you got to find some pavement on the outside. I think we've been in games where it's been so crucial for us to be able to change who we are, and we've adapted to it, which is pretty cool.
It's really amazing that we're at this point in the season And I don't know if you can look at Georgia and say we have an identity.
Right, yeah.
The identity is we adapt and we change and we're flexible and we've got enough weapons to beat you whichever way we want to go beat you. You know, when you think about most teams, their identity is, if you think about the Georgia team from 2017 going into the 2018 national championship, we were an offense that was going to run the football. That was 100% our identity. You take that away, we're going to struggle some.
Yeah.
We don't have an identity. This is not a defensive dominated team. It's not an offensive dominated team. It's not a team that just blitzes left and right. We adapt every game and get out and just present. We look like a brand new football team every time we step on the field, and that presents so many problems for opposing teams that we play.
And what do we look like against another SEC defense on Saturday against LSU, team we obviously haven't seen before this season? You wouldn't expect any changes. It's just go and do what we've been doing all season long, just in different variations.
I think it's exactly the same thing that we've been doing all year long. You know, I think if there are any common denominators, you can expect the ball to be in the hands of Brock Bowers early and Darnell Washington early, and get the ball to Kenny McIntosh early. Take a couple of shots down the field with Ladd or with Kieras. You know, I think that we're going to go see that. How we get there, you know, I think it's going to be like it's been all year long. You're not going to know when it's coming at you, but it's going to be hit by body blow, body blow, and then all of a sudden we're going up top, and you're like, what just happened? It is, but this team, you know, when you get through the entire week of film work and you really dig in and put your plan in place, we're going to have a plan that is unique and specific to going in and playing an LSU Tiger team that we haven't seen yet this year, but you know the pieces that are going to be leveraged and utilized, and you know they're going to be touching the ball early in the game.
Here's one thing that I'll say going into this game. I heard Georgia Tech say when, you know, they're getting ready for Georgia, number 19 is their best player. They're going to try to get him the football. Well, some games it's Brock, some games it's Darnell. Sometimes we've seen Kenny have good games, seen Ladd have good games. But I think really in this game, everybody talks about Jaden Daniels and his legs. How about our number 13?
Oh my
How about
goodness.
his ability to be able to create with his legs and a bunch of games this season? I think that's going to be a big part of the game plan is, you know, Monken loves to get, you know, Stetson going early. So you get him on the perimeter, get him on those neck hits, those bootlegs, get him on those quarterback draws.
Sure.
He made some big-time plays this year with his legs. We've seen him go 50, 60 yards for a touchdown or pick up key third downs. 13 continues to impress, and I think that's what Coach Smart loves, you know, is, yeah, sometimes things break down and he makes those plays. Those kind of off-schedule plays are going to be big, I think, when you play the Tigers.
All right, let's talk special teams for a second. Georgia's got one of the best kickers in the conference, if not the nation, most reliable, in Jack Podlesny. He's, I don't know, 25 of 27 or whatever his off-the-chart percentages in kicking field goals. We saw him go long this past week against Georgia Tech with a 50-yarder, his longest of the season. The Australian punter, Brett Thorson, has really opened some eyes this year. You get your thoughts on those two kickers. I know there's a lot more to special teams than just kicking,
Yeah.
but those two guys are kind of the highlight.
Well, you're talking about anytime you get pretty much on the other side of the 50, you feel good about your kicker putting it through the uprights. And I heard Coach Martin in the last game versus Georgia Tech, and it was a third down situation, and he's yelling at Stetson, we got three. We got three, so make sure you take care of the football. That's the kind of mindset you have once you get inside here is, all right, we know we got 3 points because we got a guy who can get it done. We've seen Thorson kind of grow this year. You know, a lot of people talking about how it's Australian kicker coming over. How's he going to do? New kicker. And he's done an outstanding job. We've seen him, you know, pin guys inside the 10-yard line multiple times this year. And I think the other part about it is that you mentioned is we got a pretty good punt returner. We've seen Ladd create a couple times this year and make some plays. I think that third phase is always critical.
And coverage, too.
And coverage as well. I mean, you got to be able to, you know, change the field position for everybody as well. But I think we've got one of the best third phases in the country. That's a big part of the game that, you know, a lot of people never talk about, but it sometimes comes down to a guy who can make a kick or a guy who can, you know, kneel one down in the, you know, inside the 5. It's a big part of the game.
Well, it's a part of the game that gets overlooked until this time of year,
Yeah,
until
for
championship football. And you and I both know that, you know, to win championships, to win SEC championships, to win national championships, to win against the elite competition that you're going to play across the country, you've got to win in all phases of the game. And it's the ability for Thorson to flip a field. It's the ability to go hit a 50-yarder going into the locker room, right, to just flip momentum or change momentum. It's the ability to beat Ladd McConkey against Georgia Tech and knock a ball down and down it on the 2-yard line. All of those things are important. You know, the reason I've got such great comfort within our specialty teams is not just because of the skill talent that we have. It's because when you recruit the way Kirby and the staff have recruited over the years, and you can have a special teams unit made up of 4- and 5-star guys,
Right.
where our athletes are simply better than your athletes, that is a great luxury.
Got our
and a
starting
great-
safety, Malachi Starks, running down on the kickoff.
It's unbelievable.
Like, come on, man.
It's unbelievable,
Yeah.
right? But
Cool.
we do it without hesitation because we know that game is 1/3 of the football game.
For
and if
sure.
you're not going to go, if you lose there, boy, you better be excellent in the other two.
We've seen Georgia have to, I'll use the word settle for field goals in the red zone a lot this year. But you've got a great, reliable kicker in Jack Podlesny. You two guys were offensive players. What does that feel like when you're in there close and you can't punch it in and you got to settle
It's
for
the
three?
pressing, Scott. We want to score touchdowns. No, I think every quarterback and every
That's true.
It is true. We do want to score touchdowns, but I think at the end of the day, when you look up and you're scoring points, you're putting pressure on the opposing team. You always want to put 7 on the board, but when you got a reliable kicker, it takes a little bit of pressure off you because you know you don't have to force the issue as much because, we always talk, you want to end the series with a kick, and that's kind of what has happened. Now, obviously, the red zone stuff is something we got to clean up. We want to make sure that we're scoring touchdowns, but when you have a reliable guy like Pod, you're going to get points. It's always an advantage.
Well, Shock, I think you said it. It takes pressure off of you as a quarterback. I mean, listen, the field truncates when you're in the red zone. It's short. You've got another defender which is the back line of the end zone that comes into play as well. So everything is quicker, everything is tighter, and you want to take care of the football. When you're down in that area, you don't want to take points off the board. You want to get touchdowns, but you sure don't want to take points off the board. And having somebody like that is as reliable as he has been, it's a great luxury. It lets you relax a little bit and just go play. One thing that we have got to run the football when we get into the red zone.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
We have got to be able to move the line of scrimmage. If you can't run the football when you get in the red zone, it is hard to score touchdowns. So, and listen, we've run the ball well throughout the year, but we've had periods of time where we haven't been able to go get that 1 or 2 critical yards. I would imagine Coach Munkin is going to draw up some things that are going to be a little bit unique as we get into these last few games of the season, especially with this SEC championship game, that will minimize some of those challenges that we've had. But when you can run the football, it makes a big difference. When you've got a kicker like Jack Pod, boy, that makes a big difference as well, and it's a luxury to have.
All right, it's Georgia and LSU in the SEC championship Saturday, 4 o'clock at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We've got the radio call starting at noon on Saturday. We hope you can join us. So we hope to see you in Atlanta. For DJ Shockley and Eric Zire, thanks a lot, guys. Great analysis. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
you,
Go
man.
Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.